This is Conversations with a Citizen. I'm your host, Tia Carol Jones. I'm here today with Bril, Barrett, founder of Making a Difference Dancing Rhythms.
Yes.
He also is the director of the Chicago Tap Summit and the founder of MADD Rhythms Tap Academy.
That's it. That's it.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored and happy to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Let's see. I'm a tap dancer, born and bred on the west side of Chicago. I'm from the North Lawndale community.
Okay.
Spent my whole life wanting to be a professional tap dancer. Made that happen, through the grace of God and my mom's hard work. Spent a lot of years traveling and basically getting to see the world because of this art form. So at a certain point, I decided that I wanted to try to help expose young people from the community like me to the same art form, to offer it as a solution or a possibility of an option for them as well. And so I started MADD Rhythms in 2001. And officially, before that, I was teaching and I was volunteering. And I was just like, let me get a couple of these young kids and try to show them the beauty of this art form. And that eventually evolved into the company MADD Rhythms, which started out just as a training company. Then we started to become a production company, and we presented some shows that were well received. And then we started the school, the MADD Rhythms Tap Academy, because at those shows, a lot more young people were coming up to us saying, I want to learn how to do that. I want to learn how to do that. And then from the school, we started a festival called the Chicago Tap Summit so that people from all over the world could come to Chicago and study with us. So it was a way for me to literally give back to my community through the art form of tap dance in a way that if I hadn't been exposed to it, I don't know where I would be now. And so a full circle moment is now seeing like 2 generations in, that now I have the children of and the siblings of some of my first students that I exposed to the art form. And I love tap. I call myself a taptivist. Okay. Because I find myself just as a black man in America and also as a tap dancer, dealing with a black art form that has often been subjugated and relegated just like its creators. I find myself always fighting for the honor and the respect of the art form. But that's pretty much me in a nutshell. A taptivist and a lover of the art.
Okay. And so how did you get into tap dancing?
My mom put me in, so I'm from, like I said, I'm from the west side of Chicago. My mom, well, let me go back a little bit. My grandmother always wanted to be an entertainer.
Okay.
She could not. The times, the life. She came up here from Arkansas, met my grandfather who was from Louisiana. So that whole family life came into play. So she was like, well, I couldn't do it, so I want my children to do it. So she put my mom and my aunts and my uncles all into dance school and music school, and none of them stayed with it. Okay. So when her children started having children, she was like, well, somebody gonna do it. So my grandmother stayed on my mom and my aunt and said, put me and my cousins at the time, put them into the arts and the dance school and stuff. And so I went to a place called the Better Boys Foundation, North Lawndale community, and they had a playground on one side, which had a basketball court, softball mound, and then a playground. Then on the other side was the Lamont Zeno Theater. So when me and my cousins walked in this community center, they all kind of went to the right for the sports. I went left into the theater, and I've never stopped.
So you talked a little bit about why you wanted to start the MADD Rhythms and the Tap Academy. What else was there that made you say, okay, I'm going to do that?
Well, for me, it was literally having a home. Every time, like I started off performing and then I began teaching, but teaching was never my goal. Teaching was just a job to pay the bills in between performances. If I could get in the tour, get on the road, then I was good. But I noticed that every time I would leave, I would come back to Chicago, it was like starting over again. And I would have to pretty much cold call dance studios and try to get jobs. And I was like, you know what, I want a home. I want to create something that I can go away from and come back to, and it's still home. So that was one reason. Another reason, my little brother at the time, who's 10 years younger than me, was starting to get into a little trouble. And I would talk to my mom when I was on the road, and she would say, hey, you know, your little brother's, he didn't come in last night, or he missed curfew, or whatever. And she said, I'm just, you know, he's not listening. And I said, well, let me grab him and bring him with me. And so that whole volunteer thing with exposing the young, first it was young men. I wanted to show young men, young black men, this art form just like it had been shown to me. And so it was literally like a boys thing. But then my little sister was like, how come it gotta be just boys? And so there was no real answer for that question. So I invited her in, and that's how the whole thing kind of officially started. But having a home, having my siblings, my younger siblings with me, and so I could keep an eye on them. And then, like I said in the beginning, also exposing as many young black men and women as I could to this art form. Those were like all the foundation bricks for this organization.
And what are some of the programs you have?
So what I like to say is we have from novice to professional, from the studio to the stage, a full pipeline in one place, one facility. We are an arts partner in residence at the Harold Washington Culture Center in Bronzeville, and I like knowing that a young black child could walk in off the street into the Harold Washington Culture Center, never knowing what tap was, never having seen a tap shoe, but can leave there a professional tap dancer.
Okay.
So with that being said, so we have the MADD Rhythms Tap Academy, and we just started our Tap for Tots program. Shout out to my sister Star Dixon, who started a Tap for Tots program. So we now take them at 2 for our Tap for Tots. They move into Tap Academy at 5, which runs all the way up until usually, we have adults, we have adult classes, the MADD Rhythms Tap Academy. But then when they turn 14, they're able to get into any of our after school programs, which is job opportunities. For many years, we ran it through After School Matters. Also After School All Stars, several organizations, and now we run it independently. But our after school job promotional training program is for 14 to 18-year-olds. And then once they turn 18, they either go to college or they may say, I still want to study. So we have a pre-professional apprenticeship program that allows them to study with our professional company. And pretty much the next step after that is an audition to become a member of the professional company. So those are all the different programs that we have. But we just try to stay, again, a lot of times we expose children to stuff, but then after they leave us, they go back to the world that they come from, and it's not the same. So I was intent on trying to build that step ladder that would allow them to stay with us all the way into professionalism if that's what they chose.
So where you kind of talked about being an artist in residence at the Harold Washington Performing Arts Center. Where else were you performing before COVID?
So we started out in 2001 at the South Shore Culture Center.
Okay.
And we were an arts partner in residence connected through the Park District.
Okay.
After 10 years there, we grew, and then we moved to the Harold Washington Culture Center. So those have been our two homes.
Okay.
But pre-COVID, we performed everywhere. Our company, this is our 20th anniversary.
Okay.
So for the last 20 years in the tap world, we've made quite a nice reputation as a company. And then even all of my company members are also accomplished soloists in the field. So we literally pre-pandemic, pre-COVID, we were everywhere. I would travel at least 3 times a month, every month. Tap festivals, performances. We did the Kennedy Center, which was probably one of the last biggest things we did. We just Tap Festival in Brazil. I took a bunch of teenagers to the UK in February of 2020.
Oh, wow.
So the last trip I took before no more trips was to the UK, and it was taking a group of our teenagers to the UK to again, because the whole thing is about opening up the world.
Right.
So the way I love traveling, but I never would have known that if it wasn't for tap dance. So that was a cool thing for me. And but again, after that, the whole world shut down.
As an artist, how did you navigate the pandemic?
Well, that is a intense question. So as an artist, one would think that no matter what happens, you have creativity. But we're also human beings, right? So the first thing is I'm an artist, but then I'm also a business owner. And then I'm also an educator. And I'm also all these things in one. And for the first time in my life, all of them cut off at the same time. And I will say, I can look back at it now and say I pretty much went into a state of depression for about probably like 3 weeks to a month, like the beginning of the pandemic. I just didn't know which way was up, like because I'd never had. It was like everything. We had to shut the studio down, discontinue the rehearsals, all the programs, everything. So, but then I started realizing that wait, getting a full night's sleep might not be such a bad thing. Or, being able to sit and come up with an idea and actually strategically work it out without being pressured to, do this and that might not be a bad thing. So I immediately, after going through that depression and getting over the shock of the instant change, the second part was I dove headfirst back into my business. And I said, so what, over the past 20 years, what have I let slip through the cracks? And I started attacking those things one by one. I made sure to get all our paperwork in order. I was like, have I missed any deadlines? Have I missed? And so that's the way that I started to tackle it. And then the programs started showing up, the different SBA, and so applying for those programs and starting to get help. And then so then we started our rehearsals back up, but we were virtual. And it was very interesting because at that time, there were some people who have always been online. But me, I'm an in-studio, share the same space, share the same energy kind of person. So it was very interesting to now be in a state where I'm trying to figure out how to take what I do and transfer it to the internet. Now make it virtual. And I know that sounds crazy now because everything is virtual, but at that moment, that was also like another, I'd like to say I'm glad that I'm an improvisational based artist because I literally started improvising on ways to now carry on my career as a tap dancer and as a business owner, but virtually. And I will say having the studio to still go to, even if it was by myself, allowed me to still let off some emotional steam. My company's rehearsals, we went virtual. So, we got into the Zoom thing and we didn't even really dance though. It was kind of just checking in with each other. It was like helping make sure that everybody was okay. And then I started doing virtual classes, and then once I started, then people started inviting me, would you teach here virtually? And so then my company actually produced an event in May of 2020 celebrating National Tap Dance Day, and it was an entire virtual tap festival. And so that was like my real entry into the now virtual world. And since then, we just been moving and constantly moving, and now everything we do is hybrid. So even though the city just opened back up, and everything is now in real time, we've now amassed such a collection of people from all over the world because of our virtual things that I was like, I don't want to let that go. So now all the classes we teach are in person and hybrid and virtual at the same time. And so, also outfitting the studio technology-wise to be able to do that was also like something I had to learn how to do, which was actually kind of fun.
Now that the world is opening back up, what does MADD Rythms have planned?
Well, it's funny. Okay, it's funny that you asked that. So one, we're gonna take over the world. No, just one shuffle at a time. I'd like to say no, but what we have planned. So we are currently gearing up for like literally a full summer. Like soon as the world started opening up, also the opportunities for us started opening up as well. So we have, as a matter of fact, this weekend we're going to Wisconsin to be part of a Juneteenth / Get the Shot vaccination event. And Music Soul Child is the headliner, so that's kind of cool. We've got this is our 20th anniversary, so we're now in works to plan for our big 20th anniversary Tap Festival, which will now be virtual and in real time. We're debuting a new show called Hoofin' It, the untold story of the founders of tap dance, because I'm a history buff, and as I said in the beginning, I'm a taptivist. And that's a project that one of the things that happened during COVID was I applied for a grant to produce this show and then was awarded by the CDF Chicago Dance Makers Foundation. And so that grant has allowed me to now pay my company to be a part of this show. So like things like that are just, I think that's some of the biggest stuff we have coming up.
What do you hope people get from your performances?
One, sheer love, joy, and passion for the art form. But also, it's often thought, especially in the dance community, but a lot of people think you can't tell stories with tap dance. Like if you think of ballet, you think of Swan Lake. If you think of, different things, there's stories that are attached to the art form. So I just want to keep telling our story, the story of African Americans and our plight and our fight in this country, but also our great artistic heritage and all the different innovative ways we've connected to the world around us, but all told through tap. And so I hope people come away with a sense of joy, but also of having learned something, or maybe having a new way to think about something that they already were thinking about.
Where can people go to find out more about MADD Rhythms?
First and foremost, we are maddrhythms.com. That's MADD with 2 D's, MADDRHYTHMS.com. On all social media, we are MADD Rhythms with 2 D's. And then we got a real poppin' YouTube page right now because we've been dropping a lot of digital content because that's one of those things we were like, we should do more digital stuff. So we've been dropping some really nice videos that people are enjoying. And that's on the YouTube / MADD Rhythms page. So yeah, that's how you find us.
Before we wrap up, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Let's see. Anything else I would like to add? Of course, when you ask that question, I think of everything and nothing at once. Just know, like all the traveling I did pre-pandemic, one of the things I was always proud of was being from Chicago. But one of the things people most knew Chicago for was whatever the gun violence, the stuff that gets reported in the news. And so I always found myself, again, as a taptivist, as an activist, say, hey, there's a lot more, there's a lot more in Chicago. They're just not all reporting about it. So one, I love that the Citizen reports about us and our communities and the things that we do, and that I'm also continuing that same journey to make people aware that there's a large population of young people in the city doing positive things, and we're going to continue to be there to help mold and guide them and push them to a better future.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Remember to make plans to join us again next week for Conversations with the Citizen, the place where real news